Now let's shift gears a little and talk about the science. SpineX has made some incredible progress, not just in development, but also in research and clinical validation. Could you walk us through some of the key milestones you've achieved so far and give us a glimpse into the research that's currently underway?
And before we get into that, I just want to take a few minutes to just take a step back and sort of paint a picture about how we got to where we are today. And like I said earlier, this technology is deeply based on science and decades of early research that was done. So it's a lot of the milestones that we've achieved over the last 5 years that SpineX has been active is based on some of those early results that were observed and our team demonstrating them for the first time ever. As a company, we've achieved some key milestones, being able to conduct clinical trials, being able to conduct these studies in individuals living with neurological conditions such as spinal cord injury, stroke, multiple sclerosis, children living with cerebral palsy. That in itself has been a huge achievement, demonstrating success within a matter of weeks, and the level of functional gain possible after just a few treatment sessions compared to these individuals living for decades has been an achievement in itself. To expand on that, being able to take our early results to the US FDA and gaining breakthrough designation for not one, but for 2 separate clinical indications using the same platform technology. I think that was one of the highlights for us over the last few years. In addition, being able to successfully complete the world's largest clinical trial focused on neurogenic bladder. So this is individuals living with a spinal cord injury or stroke leading to loss of bladder function. I think that in itself was a huge accomplishment for us. And that consisted of over 5,000 hours of treatment that was undertaken, probably another 5 to 10,000 hours of data analysis to get to where we are today. And the last key achievement that I'm really proud of as a company is that we have been able to support not just trials that we are running, but also trials that are being conducted by other investigators around the world. And I'm proud to say that we now have clinical trials ongoing in 4 different continents, in North America, in Europe, in Asia, as well as in Australia, that are catering to the needs of individuals living with neurological conditions.
One thing that stands out, Parag, about SpineX is the emphasis on non-invasive solutions. How has the research proven that you can achieve these kinds of remarkable results without invasive procedures or even surgeries?
That's a great question. And I think for us as a group, we focus heavily on the primary question that we asked ourselves when we started the company, which is, what is the data telling us? And that really drove our thinking to ensure and identify what these effects were. And the early skepticism that we ourselves had, as well as what the scientific and clinical community shared with us, was that non-invasive neuromodulation may not work. But our data told us otherwise. And when we look at the data, what stands out for SpineX is we're one of the only technologies that is focused entirely on non-invasive neuromodulation and have been successful in demonstrating a level of functional gain possible after not years, but decades after initial trauma, which has not been seen prior to this.
I know there have been multiple clinical studies and some very promising outcomes, especially for individuals with SCI and CP. Can you highlight what has been most exciting or surprising in the data?
As a company, what we've developed is really a platform technology. And I wouldn't really call it surprising, but I would call it as a standout observation, is that this platform technology has the ability to treat the underlying condition for multiple pathologies, be it spinal cord injury, stroke, multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy. It has the ability to treat multiple indications, right? From moving your hands and arms, restoring breathing function, restoring bladder, bowel, sexual function, spasticity, to name a few. And most strikingly, it has the ability to treat individuals that have been injured or have been living with paralysis for as early as 6 months to as far out as 50 years. So the underlying condition, the underlying hypothesis still remains the same, which is that what we are targeting is the neurons in the spinal cord that are controlling function. And what people have historically considered as muscle memory is actually spinal memory. And the ability to tap into that spinal memory is what drives our technology. So that's really our standout observation.
Can you explain us the device in layman terms? I know you reference to as a hearing aid. Maybe if in simple words, you can explain to the audience what the xStep device actually does.
So when there's a trauma that occurs between anywhere in the spinal cord or the brain, the communication between the brain, spinal cord, and muscle is lost. And because of that loss in function, the signals that are transmitted from the brain to the muscle is cut out due to that trauma. But the signals are still present. They're just not strong enough. So the best way to describe our technology that's driving xStep is it's a combination of a hearing aid and a spinal pacemaker. So like a pacemaker drives your heart with a certain rhythm, we are able to drive the neurons in the spinal cord to activate those neurons and activate those networks and amplify the weak nerve signals that are communicating between the brain, spinal cord, and muscle. Essentially, like a hearing aid. So when you combine these two concepts together, you're able to restore bilateral communication between the brain, spinal cord, and muscle, allowing more normal-like communication that you'd expect.
What's currently in the pipeline, Parag? Are there any ongoing studies or trials that you are particularly excited about, maybe exploring new indications or expanding the use cases for your device?
Yeah, we've got lots of exciting steps planned for the near future. Like I mentioned earlier, our neurogenic bladder trial was recently completed, which is a huge accomplishment. We have a second pivotal trial looking at US FDA approval, focused entirely on the pediatric population, that is children living with cerebral palsy. That's in the pipeline and being planned right now. In terms of next steps, we're looking at gaining regulatory approval for marketing purposes, both in the US and OUS, and looking at how we can get this technology to individuals living with paralysis, not just in the US, but also worldwide.